Rain hammered the glass roof of the emergency entrance, turning the world outside into a blur of silver streaks. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over a too small waiting room where Ethan paced in circles, holding his daughter's tiny jacket against his chest, as if it could warm the fear out of him. Nurses rushed past. A monitor wailed from somewhere down the hall, and through the smudged window of room 12, a little girl with fading cheeks and trembling breasts lay, fighting time. Ethan pressed his palm to the glass, whispering her name, Ava, as if the sound alone could anchor her here. Before we go deeper, tell me, where are you watching this from? It never fails to amaze me how one story can find its way across oceans of distance. Drop your city below. Let's see how far hope still travels. Ethan's throat burned. He hadn't slept in nearly 40 hours, and every second felt like a hand squeezing his lungs tighter. The doctors have been kind, but their words were knives wrapped in sympathy. Ava needed a rare treatment, experimental, absurdly expensive, and far beyond what a public school art teacher could afford. Insurance wouldn't touch it. Loans had already been denied. His savings were gone, swallowed whole by months of hospital bills. He stared at the vending machine near the hallway, at the reflection of a man who looked far older than 32, and wondered how life could free fall so quickly. 1 month ago, Ava was dancing in the kitchen, begging him to braid her hair like her favorite cartoon character. Now her life hung on a number, $480,000, a number he could never reach. When footsteps slowed behind him, Ethan didn't turn. He assumed it was another nurse, maybe the social worker again, offering pamphlets he'd already read. But the air shifted, a quiet presence, steady and oddly composed for a place built on panic. Ethan Ward, a voice asked. He turned. The man standing there didn't belong to this fluorescent world. His charcoal suit was sharp enough to cut the silence, his posture effortless, like he had never once been denied anything. His eyes, though gray, focused, held something heavier, something knowing. Yes, Ethan said, uncertain. That's me. The man extended a hand. Michael Rowan. The name landed with weight. Ethan blinked. The Michael Rowan, CEO of Rowan Biotech, billionaire, philanthropist, a man whose decisions shaped medical innovations across the world. Ethan had read about him in the hospital brochures. His company funded several research wings, including the treatment Ava desperately needed. But seeing him here in person felt unreal. Ethan didn't shake his hand. Not because he didn't want to. He simply didn't trust his own knees to hold if he moved. I heard about your daughter, Michael said quietly. Dr. Caldwell briefed me. She told me what you're facing. Ethan swallowed. Then you know I can't pay for what she needs. Michael didn't flinch. I know. Silence spread between them, thick and fragile. Ethan forced a breath. If you came to tell me there's nothing you can do, please don't. I'm trying to stay standing. Michael studied him for a long moment, something unreadable flickering behind his gaze. Instead of answering, he glanced toward Ava's room. How long has she been unconscious? Since late last night. Ethan's voice cracked. Her heart couldn't keep the strain. And you're here alone? I've always been, Ethan said, rubbing his wrist. It's just me and her. Michael's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Then he released a slow breath, as if arriving at a decision he'd been wrestling internally. Ethan, what if the cost wasn't a barrier anymore? The words were too big, too impossible. Ethan shook his head. Please don't say things that sound like hope unless they're real. They're real, Michael said. I can fund the entire treatment. Today, no conditions. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. Why? Why would you do that for us? You don't even know me. Michael didn't smile. He didn't soften. He simply spoke with conviction that sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. Some debts, he said, aren't measured in money. Before Ethan could ask what that meant, a nurse sprinted toward them. Mr. Ward, Ava's oxygen levels are dropping again. We need you inside. Ethan's heart stopped. He ran without thinking, pushing through the doors toward the child who was his whole world. unaware that behind him, Michael Rowan was watching with a gaze full of determination and a secret heavy enough to change everything that came next. The nurse lifted wires and adjusted machines as Ethan rushed to Ava's bedside, grasping her hand, whispering promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Outside the room, Michael stood at the threshold, the storm behind him echoing the storm inside, because saving this child wasn't an act of charity. It was a choice he'd made long before today, and the truth of it was about to pull all three of their worlds into a tangle impossible to undo. The room was a blur of blue scrubs and flashing numbers. Her sats are at 68. A nurse shouted, fingers flying over the ventilator settings. Ethan stood frozen for half a second, then forced himself to move, to get to her side. Ava looked so small under the tangle of tubes and tape, her eyelashes resting against skin that had turned a dangerous shade of gray. Her little hand lay limp on the blanket, and four taped across her wrist like a cruel bracelet. "Ava, baby, I'm here," he whispered, leaning close enough that his tears dotted her pillow. "Daddy's here. Don't let go. Please." Dr. Caldwell pushed through, her expression tight, her hair falling from a loose bun. "We're losing ground," she said, almost to herself. Her heart can't keep compensating. We're out of time. Ethan grabbed at her sleeve. "Do something. Please, there has to be something." She hesitated, and that hesitation was worse than any words. "There's the new gene therapy protocol we discussed, but we don't have clearance for her case yet. The paperwork, the funding. She doesn't have time for paperwork." Ethan's voice cracked, cutting through the beeps. "I'll sign anything. I don't care what it costs. I'll figure it out." "You can't," she said gently. "Not this one. It's almost $500,000 up front. The hospital can't approve it without guaranteed coverage." The door opened again. Michael stepped in, his presence bending the frantic air of the room. He took it all in with one long, focused look. Ava's flickering numbers, Ethan's shaking hands, Dr. Caldwell's helplessness. "What do you need to start the protocol?" he asked quietly. Dr. Caldwell blinked. Mr. Rowan, we need board approval and legal sign-off, and—" "I didn't ask what the process is," he interrupted, but his voice stayed calm. "I asked what you need." Her eyes darted to Ethan, then back to Michael. "We need consent forms signed and secure funding. The hospital can't risk." "I'll assume full financial responsibility," Michael said, "for every cent put under Rowan Biotech's expanded compassionate use program. I'll send the directive myself." Dr. Caldwell stared at him as if she'd misheard. "Sir, that program it doesn't extend to this hospital." "It does now," Michael said. "Call legal. Tell them it's a directive from me, effective immediately. If they argue, tell them to call my office while they're processing the approval, not before." There was a beat of stunned silence. Then everything moved at once. Dr. Caldwell snapped into motion, barking orders. A nurse thrust a clipboard toward Ethan. "Mr. Ward, these are the consent forms. We need your signature now." His vision blurred. This will save her? "It's her best shot," Dr. Caldwell said. "Maybe her only one." His hand shook so hard he could barely hold the pen. He glanced at Michael, at the man who had just turned an impossible wall into a doorway, with a few words. "Why?" Ethan asked, voice barely a breath. "Why are you doing this?" Michael's gaze held his, steady and unreadable. "Because no father should have to watch his child slip away, while numbers on a page decide her worth." The pen clattered against the clipboard as Ethan forced his name onto the lines. Tears spilled freely now, not from despair this time, but from something he hadn't dared to feel in days. Hope, fragile and trembling. As the medical team rushed to prepare the treatment, Ethan stepped back, leaning against the wall, his chest heaving. The realization crashed over him. His little girl had a chance because a stranger with more money than he could comprehend had chosen her. If you were standing in that room, watching a man save your child's life with a single decision, what would you say to him? Be honest and share in the comments. And if words don't come, just hit like to show that you still believe mercy should win over money. They wheeled in a special cart, sleek and cold, carrying the vials that held the future of Ava's cells. Machines hummed to life with a different tone, more focused, more precise. Ethan watched every movement like his gaze alone might keep them all from making a mistake. From the doorway, Michael stood apart, hands loosely in his pockets, shoulders squared. He looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not a pediatric ICU. But there was something in his eyes as he watched Ava that didn't belong to profit margins or quarterly reports. It was personal, raw, even a flicker of pain that didn't quite fit the image of a billionaire untouchable by ordinary tragedies. Dr. Caldwell moved to Ethan's side for a moment. "We're going to start the infusion slowly," she said. "You might not see changes right away, but this is more than we hoped for yesterday." Ethan nodded, wiping his face with the back of his hand. Will she feel anything?" "She's sedated," the doctor said softly. "If this works, over the next few days her heart function should improve. Her lungs too. We'll monitor every step." He looked at Ava, her small chest rising and falling with the ventilator's help. "She wanted to be a heart fixer when she grew up," he murmured. "Said she wanted to help kids with tired hearts like hers." Dr. Caldwell's eyes glistened. "Maybe she still will." When she stepped away, Ethan realized Michael was gone from the doorway. Panic flared, irrational but sharp. He hurried into the corridor, spotting the man in the dim light of the family waiting area. Standing near the rain-streaked window, he approached slowly. "Mr. Rowan?" Michael turned, the mask of control already back in place. "They've started." "Yes." Ethan swallowed hard. "They said it's her best chance. I don't know how to thank you. There aren't words big enough for what you just did." "You don't owe me anything," Michael replied, but there was a tightness in his jaw that betrayed the ease of his words. "Focus on her. She's the one doing the real fight." Ethan shook his head. "You say I don't owe you, but you just sign away more money than I'll see in 10 lifetimes. People don't do that for strangers." Michael's gaze drifted back to the window, where the storm still blurred the city into smears of light. "Once," he said quietly, "I was the one standing on the other side of the glass, begging for a miracle. No one came." Something in Ethan went still. He studied the man beside him, the sudden vulnerability in that simple sentence. "Your child?" he asked gently. For a heartbeat, Michael didn't answer. Then he exhaled, shoulders lowering just a fraction. "Not here," he said. "Another hospital. Another lifetime." Ethan waited, sensing there was more, but Michael didn't continue. Instead, he straightened, the momentary crack in his armor closing up. "Stay with Ava," Michael said. "I'll check in with Dr. Caldwell and make sure the administrative side doesn't slow anything down." As he walked away down the corridor, his polished shoes echoing against the linoleum, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this miracle had come with shadows attached. Shadows he didn't yet understand, but that were moving toward him all the same. Hours slid by in a fragile rhythm. Machines humming, nurses whispering updates, the storm outside softening to a steady drizzle. Ethan stayed by Ava's bedside, watching every rise and fall of her chest as though the world depended on it. His fingers never left her hand. It felt warmer now. Or maybe that was just his imagination clawing for meaning. Dr. Caldwell entered quietly. "Her levels are stabilizing," she said, offering a small smile. "It's early, but this is the first time in days her numbers aren't falling." Ethan let out a breath that trembled uncontrollably. Relief hit him so hard his knees nearly buckled. "Thank God. Thank God." She touched his shoulder gently. "This infusion is powerful. Her body just needs time to respond. You're doing everything right by staying close." When she left, the room dimmed to only the soft glow of the monitors. The quiet pressed against him, not empty but full of memories he'd tried to stay strong through. Ethan leaned his forehead against Ava's hand and whispered, "Baby girl, you hold on. You're so brave, braver than me." He thought of her laughter, the way she always insisted on 2 bedtime stories, one happy, one silly. The morning she'd wake him by tapping his nose and whispering, "Daddy, the sun's calling us." She was life itself, his entire anchor. The door eased open. Michael stepped inside again, though this time He didn't cross the room. He paused by the threshold, hands in his pockets. "How is she?" he asked quietly. "She's holding steady." Ethan wiped his face, embarrassed by how red his eyes felt. "They said that's good. For now." Michael nodded, gaze tracing the tubes, the monitors, the fragile rise of the small chest on the bed. "You should get some rest," he murmured. "I can't," Ethan said softly. "When she wakes up, I want to know I never left." They stayed like that for a few moments, two men bound by a child. One fighting to keep her, one haunted by memories of a different battle lost. Then Michael spoke, voice low, careful. "How long has it been just you and her?" "Since Ava was 2. Ethan tried to smile. "Her mother, she wasn't ready for the kind of life we had. She left, signed away her rights, and never looked back. That must have been heavy to carry alone. It was..." Ethan didn't sugarcoat it, but Ava made everything worth it. Michael's jaw tensed, the slightest twitch. Children do that. They make you believe you're stronger than you are. Something flickered between them. A thread of understanding that didn't need explanation, quiet and human. Have you ever had someone step into your life when you needed them most? If you have, write yes and tell me who they were. Gratitude might reach further than we think. Ethan eased into the chair beside the bed. His muscles ached, his eyes felt scraped raw, but he couldn't look away from Ava for long. "You said earlier," he murmured, "that once no one came for you. Was that about your child?" Michael took a slow breath, then walked further into the room, stopping a few feet from the bed. "My wife was pregnant. Complications started early. We tried everything. Every doctor, every option. Money didn't matter. But she..." He stopped, swallowed hard. "I lost them both. 2 years ago." Silence filled the space like a deep tide. Ethan's chest tightened. "Michael, I'm so sorry. I don't tell people," he said quietly. "Most of the world still thinks I'm married." The truth became a press statement written by strangers. "That sounds lonely." It was... His voice cracked faintly on the edge of the word. Ethan didn't know what to say. Not as a father, not as a man. Some losses live beyond language. Michael looked at Ava again, softer this time. "When Dr. Caldwell told me about her case, it reminded me of something I couldn't fix. But maybe I could stop someone else from living that same nightmare." Ethan breathed shakily. "You did more than stop it. You gave her a chance she'd never have without you." Michael nodded but didn't look proud. If anything, he looked unsettled, like he was standing at the edge of something he hadn't meant to begin. A nurse passed by the doorway. "Mr. Ward? Quick update. Her heart rhythm is improving. Slow but steady. Keep talking to her. She responds well to your voice." Ethan's lips parted in disbelief. She's really fighting, isn't she?" "She is." The nurse smiled before hurrying off. Ethan turned back to Michael, overwhelmed. "If she survives this, it'll be because of you." Michael stepped back slightly, eyes shadowed. "Just focus on her recovery. That's all that matters." But Ethan had watched him now, seen the calm precision, the quiet pain, the weight of ghosts in his eyes. This wasn't charity. It wasn't corporate kindness. It was personal. Too personal. Before Ethan could ask more, Michael's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expression locking back into CO's stillness. "I need to take this," he said. "I'll return later." He left before Ethan could speak. The air in the room shifted again, quieter but thicker. Ethan glanced at Ava, then at the doorway where Michael had stood. Something was beginning. Something bigger than treats or hospital forms. Something that felt like truth pulling itself toward the light, one piece at a time. Night folded over the hospital like a heavy blanket, quieting the halls, but never fully silencing the machines that breathed and pulsed and monitored life. Ethan sat with his chin resting on Ava's hand, drifting somewhere between exhaustion and prayer. The last update had been promising. Her numbers inching upward, her body responding with a stubborn will he recognized as his own. He wasn't sure when he fell asleep, only that he woke to the soft creak of a chair being pulled beside him. Michael had returned. His suit jacket was gone, sleeves rolled up, tied loosened like he'd come straight from a battlefield of boardrooms. The man looked tired. Real, human tired. Not the polished image that filled magazines and company bios. "You should sleep," Michael said quietly. Ethan rubbed his eyes. "Every time I close them, I dream something goes wrong." Michael studied him for a moment before replying, "I know that fear. It doesn't disappear. It just changes shape." The way he said it, so gently, so honestly, hit deeper than Ethan expected. "Did you love her?" Ethan asked before he could stop himself. Michael blinked slowly. "More than my own breath." Ethan nodded, accepting that answer without needing more. They both looked at Ava then, her tiny fingers, the slow and steady rise of her chest. Minutes passed in fragile silence. "She reminds me of someone," Michael said suddenly. Ethan glanced up. "Who?" Michael hesitated, locking something behind his eyes. "A child we tried to have. A child who never came home." There was something unfinished in his tone, something that didn't quite explain the lingering way he watched Ava, as though searching for familiarity he shouldn't logically find. Before Ethan could ask, a soft knock sounded at the door. A nurse wheeled in a portable scanning system. "We're checking her organ response to the infusion," she said kindly. "It's routine." Ethan stood, stepping out of the way. Michael moved too, but only slightly, close enough to observe, far enough to not intrude. The nurse lifted Ava's hospital gown and placed cold sensors along her tiny ribs. The machine hummed, lights flickering in slow patterns. "She's stabilizing beautifully." The nurse smiled. "Her heart is stronger already. It's subtle but measurable." Ethan pressed his hands to his face. It was too much relief, too much gratitude, too much fear of losing this fragile progress. Michael lowered his gaze, and for a second Ethan saw a flicker of something like grief shadow his features. Not jealousy, not longing, but recognition. "You visit the hospital a lot?" Ethan asked gently. Michael shrugged one shoulder. "More than people know." "But never the pediatric wing?" Ethan guessed. Michael's silence answered for him. "Have you ever done something good for someone, quietly, without needing the world to notice? Share one small act in the comments. Your story might remind someone that kindness still exists." When the nurse finished and wheeled the machine out, the room dimmed again. Ethan sank back into the chair. His body screamed for rest, but his heart wouldn't unclench. "Ethan," Michael's voice came softer now. "There's something I should tell you." The air stilled. Ethan lifted his head, suddenly alert. "What is it?" Michael opened his mouth, then shut again, conflict flickering across his face like a battle between two truths. He paced once, twice, hands tightening at his sides. "I didn't just hear about your daughter's case by chance," he said finally. I asked for a list of pediatric patients who were out of time." Ethan frowned, confused. "Why?" "Because I needed to do something," Michael said. "Anything. I couldn't save mine, but maybe I could save someone else's." Ethan let out a slow breath. "You did. You're saving her right now." "It's more than that." Michael's gaze sharpened, troubled. "When I saw her photo in the file, there was something I couldn't explain. A feeling. A pull." Ethan's throat tightened. "A pull toward what?" Michael stepped closer, voice dropping. "Toward her. Toward you." A strange uneasiness crept up Ethan's spine, gentle but undeniable. "What are you trying to say, Michael?" Michael inhaled deeply, as though bracing himself. "Your daughter looks remarkably like someone I lost. Enough that I thought the hospital file might be wrong." Ethan stared at him, confused and suddenly wary. "Wrong how?" Michael shook his head. "Forget it. It's late. Emotions get tangled in places like this." But Ethan didn't forget. He couldn't, because the man who had saved Ava was now looking at her with something deeper than compassion, something almost searching. A nurse appeared at the doorway. "Mr. Rowan, the hospital admin team needs your signature to finalize the inclusion protocol." Michael nodded once. "I'll be there." He turned to leave. "Michael," Ethan said. He paused. "You said earlier, some debts aren't measured in money. Were you talking about your wife? Your child?" Michael's shoulders rose and fell in a silent, conflicted breath. "Not exactly," he said, and then he walked out. Ethan sat slowly, struggling to piece together what he'd just heard. Something wasn't adding up. Something that lived beneath Michael's polished composure and fractured past. A shadow that felt closer than it should. He looked at Ava, her soft features illuminated by the monitor's glow. Why would a billionaire CEO feel a pull toward a stranger's child? Why would he talk about wrong hospital files? Why did he look at Ava like he was searching for someone he'd lost? Ethan's heart thudded harder with each question, but none of them prepared him for the truth that would soon emerge. An unraveling note upend everything he believed about his daughter's past, and Michael's connection to it. Morning crept into the pediatric ICU in thin, tentative lines of sunlight, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace inside. Ethan woke with a start, his neck stiff from sleeping upright, his hand still wrapped protectively around Ava's. Her skin felt warmer than before, less ghostly, more alive. The monitors showed numbers that no longer threatened to break him. A soft knock came at the door. Dr. Caldwell stepped in with a tablet in hand, and a rare smile warming her tired face. "She's responding better than we expected overnight," she said. "Her heart function is climbing, slowly but consistently." Ethan felt tears sting again. So many tears these past days he wasn't sure he had any left, but hope had a way of unlocking them. So she's winning? She's fighting, and for the first time in weeks, her body is fighting with her. He cupped Ava's hand against his cheek. "You hear that, baby? You're doing it." Dr. Caldwell hesitated before speaking again. "We're going to run another full panel this afternoon, including genetic markers. The therapy interacts differently depending on a child's genome, so it helps us anticipate side effects." Ethan nodded. "Whatever you need, just keep helping her." When the doctor left, Ethan exhaled a shaky breath and leaned back, letting the moment settle. His heart still raced from all the unknowns, but at least today he could breathe. A quiet knock sounded again, but this time it wasn't a doctor. Michael stepped inside, holding 2 cups of coffee, one extended toward Ethan. "I thought you could use this," he said. Ethan accepted it with a grateful nod. "Thank you for everything." Again. Michael didn't sit immediately. His gaze drifted to Ava, lingering on her face in a way that made something inside Ethan tighten. Not with fear, but with a strange, inexplicable recognition. "You look exhausted," Michael said softly. Ethan huffed a small laugh. "I look like a man living on vending machine crackers and adrenaline." "For what it's worth," Michael murmured, "you're doing better than you think." They fell into silence, not uncomfortable but weighty. Ethan took a sip of the coffee, strong, dark, grounding. "Michael," he said slowly, "last night you mentioned her file might have been wrong. What did you mean by that?" Michael stiffened almost imperceptibly. His gaze flickered, like someone caught between truths. "It was nothing," he said too quickly. "Just a moment of misplaced grief." "Was it?" Ethan pressed gently. "Or did you see something in her file that concerned you?" Michael finally sank into the chair beside him, shoulders slumping in a way Ethan hadn't seen before. "When my wife was pregnant," Michael began, voice low, "we had complications early on. We tried everything. But near the end, everything fell apart. There were tests, scans, files I've never stopped replaying in my mind." Ethan watched him closely. "And Ava reminded you of—" "Yes," Michael interrupted, raw honesty cracking through a controlled voice. "Too much." "Her resemblance?" Ethan asked cautiously. Michael ran a hand through his hair, exhaling. "Not just resemblance. Timing. Details. A few anomalies in her chart." He stopped himself abruptly, as if crossing a line even in thought. "Michael, what are you trying not to tell me?" Michael shook his head. "I don't want to put ideas in your head that have no foundation. It's irresponsible. It's emotional projection. Your daughter is yours, Ethan. Nothing changes that." But something in the way he said yours felt weighted, like an admission hiding under the surface. Ethan felt a knot forming in his chest. "Michael, if there's something I need to know—" "There isn't," Michael said firmly, standing so fast the chair scraped. "Don't borrow ghosts that aren't yours." Before Ethan could speak, Michael stepped toward the window, shoulders rigid. His reflection stared back at him, a man holding too many truths. Ethan rubbed his forehead, overwhelmed. I'm grateful for you. I truly am. But you keep hinting at things you won't say. It's hard not to wonder. Michael closed his eyes as though bracing against something. Right now, the only truth that matters is that she's improving. He turned toward Ethan again, gentler this time. Focus on her. We'll talk later, after she stabilizes. But Ethan could see it clearly now. The hesitation, the fear, the longing. Whatever Michael was carrying, it wasn't just grief. It was connection. A deep, inexplicable connection he didn't understand. Now it's your turn. Share one good thing you've done for someone recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might be the light someone needs tonight. Hours passed. Nurses came and went. Tests were run. Ava slept through all of it, her body quietly repairing itself. By evening, Dr. Caldwell returned with the results of the genetic panel. There's something we need to discuss, she said, glancing between Ethan and the doorway where Michael stood, having arrived moments before without knocking. Ethan's pulse spiked. Is something wrong? Not wrong, she said carefully. Just unexpected. There's a genetic marker, usually inherited paternally, that doesn't match what we have on file. Ethan blinked. Paternally? That can't be right. I'm her father. There's no one else. Michael's breath caught, not loud, but unmistakable. Dr. Caldwell continued. It may be an error in the initial hospital record from her birth. It happens more often than people think. But we'll need to verify with a simple test. Ethan felt the room tilt. A test? To confirm biological paternity, she said softly. Ethan stared at her, the air freezing around him. Behind him, Michael didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. Something had just erupted between them, silent, devastating, and irreversible. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The quiet inside the room felt louder than any alarm machines could have blared. Ethan gripped the rail of Ava's bed, knuckles whitening, breath caught in his throat. He searched Dr. Caldwell's face for reassurance. Something to tell him this was a clerical error, a glitch, a mistake that would dissolve under scrutiny. But her expression held only gentle regret. You're telling me, Ethan finally managed, voice unsteady, that the hospital thinks I might not be Ava's father? Dr. Caldwell stepped closer. We're not drawing conclusions. We're just saying the marker didn't match what was listed in her original birth file. It could be a documentation issue, a mix-up at the clinic, anything. We just need a quick cheek swab to confirm. Ethan swallowed hard. His pulse hammered. Ava is my daughter. I raised her. I cut her umbilical cord. I held her first. I know. His voice broke. The certainty in his heart collided violently with the uncertainty the doctor had just placed in front of him. Behind him, Michael stood frozen, not shifting, not breathing. His expression was unreadable, carved from shock and something deeper, fear, maybe, or dread. Ethan turned to him slowly. Michael, you okay? Michael blinked, eyes focusing like someone waking from a dream. Yes. I just didn't expect this. Dr. Caldwell softened her tone. The test will clear things up. And Ethan, no matter what a piece of paper says, biology doesn't define fatherhood. Love does. But Ethan barely heard her. His mind was spinning back, years back, to the night Ava was conceived. A night filled with heartbreak and loneliness, when he and Ava's mother had fought. She disappeared until morning and refused to talk about where she'd gone or who she'd seen. For years, he pushed that memory away, choosing love over suspicion. Now that memory crashed back like a blow to the ribs. Ethan steadied his breath. Let's do the test. The sooner we clear this, the better. Dr. Caldwell nodded. I'll send a nurse with the kit. She left quietly, her shoes whispering down the hall. Ethan sank into the chair beside Ava's bed. His hand shook uncontrollably. I can't believe this is happening. Michael stepped forward hesitantly. Ethan, did you know something like this was possible? Ethan asked, voice tight. Is that why you reacted last night? Michael didn't answer immediately. He looked at Ava, at the small rise and fall of her chest, before meeting Ethan's eyes. "I didn't know anything," he said softly, "but I felt something I couldn't explain. Something I didn't want to voice because it sounded insane." Ethan clenched his jaw. "You think you might be her father?" Michael flinched. "I don't know what to think. My wife and I, before she got pregnant, we tried IVF. Multiple rounds. One of the sample batches went missing for 48 hours. The clinic swore it was a refrigeration issue. Months later she conceived naturally. Or so we believed. But nothing made sense after the miscarriage. Timelines blurred. Records weren't consistent." Ethan stared at him, breath catching. "Are you saying Ava could have come from that missing sample?" Michael swallowed hard, the muscles in his throat tightening. "I never entertained the thought. Not seriously. Not until I saw her." The room spun. Ethan grabbed the edge of the bed to steady himself. If that moment hit you deep, leave a red heart below. Sometimes the smallest symbol is the closest thing we have to words. A nurse stepped inside then, holding a small swab kit. Her tone was gentle, careful. "Mr. Ward, we're ready whenever you are." Ethan nodded numbly. She swabbed inside his cheek, sealed the sample, and stepped out with a quiet promise. "We'll rush this." When she was gone, the air thickened again, pressing down on the two men standing on either side of Ava's bed. Ethan broke the silence first. "When Ava was born, her mom left soon after. She never bonded with her. Never looked at her like a mother should." His voice trembled. "I thought she was overwhelmed. I thought she had postpartum depression. I never thought she might have known something I didn't." Michael's eyes softened. "Even if this test shows something unexpected, you have been her father every single day of her life. That doesn't make the questions hurt less." "I know," Michael whispered. A long, quiet moment passed. Then Ethan forced himself to ask the question he feared most. "If the test says she's biologically yours, what happens then?" Michael closed his eyes, exhaled shakily. "I don't want to take her from you, Ethan. God, that's the last thing I want. I just want her alive. Safe. Loved. If she's yours alone, nothing changes. If she's also mine," his voice cracked, truly cracked for the first time, "then I will have to face a truth I've already lost once." Ethan stared at him, chest tightening. He felt torn between anger, fear, and an unexpected shard of empathy. "So what do we do while we wait?" he whispered. Michael looked at Ava again, eyes shining with something raw and unspoken. "We stay here," he whispered. "Together. For her." Ethan looked down at Ava's sleeping face, at the child who was his entire heartbeat, and wondered how one day could hold so much hope and so much terror at the same time. Outside, footsteps echoed softly down the hall as the storm clouds parted, letting a thin beam of sunlight reach the window, fragile, trembling, but still there. Just like them. Just like Ava. The hours after the test crawled by with agonizing slowness. Ethan sat rigidly beside Ava, every muscle wound tight as a pulled thread. Michael stayed too, hovering a few feet away, close but cautious, as if one wrong movement might shatter the fragile balance between them. Nurses drifted in and out with updates, each one the same. "Ava is stable. Ava is responding. Ava is still fighting." Those words held Ethan together when everything else felt like it was coming apart. By late afternoon, soft gold sunlight streamed to the window, warming Ava's blankets. Her cheeks looked faintly rosier, her breathing steadier. The improvement was subtle but real, and Ethan clung to it like a lifeline. "She looks stronger today," Michael murmured. Ethan nodded. "She does." "I've seen hundreds of medical recoveries," Michael said quietly. "Gene therapy is unpredictable, but she's responding better than most adults ever do." Ethan traced a finger along Ava's wrist. "She always was tough. Tougher than both of us," Michael added with a faint, almost broken smile. Silence settled again, heavier now, but not hostile, just full of everything unspoken. A knock interrupted them. Dr. Caldwell stepped inside, a folder tucked under her arm. Her expression was unreadable. Ethan's heart tripped. Michael straightened instantly. "The paternity verification is back," she said softly. Ethan grabbed the edge of the bed, and Dr. Caldwell took a slow breath, then shook her head. There's no match. The words hit Ethan like a physical blow, sharp, cold, dizzying. He felt the breath leave his lungs, the room tilting for a moment as he fought the urge to collapse. Beside him, Michael inhaled sharply, but didn't speak. Ethan forced out, voice raw. No match, meaning I'm not her biological father. Dr. Caldwell's face softened painfully. Meaning the marker we tested doesn't align with your DNA, Ethan. Biologically speaking, no. The world blurred. He reached blindly for the chair and sat heavily, elbows on his knees, palms covering his face. Years of memories flooded him. First words, scraped knees, birthday candles, bedtime stories, and all of it felt suddenly fragile, like a glass world that had just cracked down the center. Ava was his. He'd never doubted that. Not once. Take your time, Dr. Caldwell said quietly. This doesn't change her medical needs or the love she has from you. When she left, the door clicked shut with unbearable finality. Ethan stayed frozen for several seconds, unable to move, speak, or breathe. Then he lifted his head and stared at Michael, really stared at him, and saw the truth already blooming in the man's expression. Is it you? Ethan whispered. Are you her biological father? Michael didn't answer immediately. His jaw clenched, eyes shining with things he could no longer hide. It's likely, he said finally. Very likely. Ethan felt something inside him splinter. Not hate, not anger. Something deeper, emptier. A grief that had no shape yet. But how? Ethan rasped. Her mother, she never said anything. Michael swallowed hard. I don't know the specifics. But if the missing IVF sample was used without our knowledge, then Ava could have been conceived from it. I didn't know. I swear to you, Ethan, I didn't know. Ethan dragged both hands through his hair, chest constricting. This is insane. My whole life, her whole life, what am I supposed to do with this? Michael stepped closer, but kept a careful distance. Let me be clear, he said softly. I am not trying to take her from you. Ethan's eyes snapped up. But you're her biological father. Yes, Michael whispered, voice cracking. But you're the man who held her first. You're the man who stayed. You're the man she calls Dad. That doesn't disappear because of a test result. Ethan looked back at Ava. Her tiny hand lay open on the blanket, warm, trusting, unchanged, as if her DNA could ever overwrite the years he'd poured into her life. It couldn't. It never would. Then what do you want, Michael? He asked quietly. Michael hesitated, just for a second, before speaking truthfully. I want her to live, he said. That's all. Everything else we face together. If you'll let me. Ethan didn't answer. Couldn't. The ground beneath him had shifted too violently. Minutes passed. Long, aching minutes. Then Ava's fingers twitched. Just a tiny flutter. But it was enough to pull both men closer at once. Her eyelids flickered. Her lips moved faintly. Daddy? The smallest whisper. But it shattered Ethan completely. He leaned over her, tears falling freely. I'm here, sweetheart. Daddy's right here. Hope surged through the room like a warm tide. Michael stepped back, letting Ethan have the moment, his own eyes wet as he watched the child who carried his blood and the man who carried her world. If you believe love still wins in the end, comment amen. Someone scrolling by might need your hope more than you know. Ava's eyes didn't fully open, but her hand curled weakly around Ethan's finger. Her pulse monitor steadied. Her breathing deepened. The therapy was working, more than working. She was pulling herself back from the edge. Ethan kissed her forehead, whispering, You're so strong, Ava. We're here. We're both here. Michael stepped forward just a little, voice trembling. She's really fighting. Ethan nodded. She always fights. And then, slowly, cautiously, he looked at Michael again, not with anger, not with blame, but with a painful, cautious understanding. Life had thrown them into a storm they never asked for, but Ava was alive. Ava was waking. Ava was pulling them both toward a future none of them could yet define. And the next step whatever it would be, was waiting just beyond this fragile moment of hope. Ethan stayed bent over Ava for several minutes, whispering soft words, half prayers, half promises, while her tiny fingers clung to his. Her eyes fluttered open for only seconds at a time, but each brief glimpse felt like sunrise after the longest night of his life. Her color had returned. Her breaths were stronger. The therapy was doing more than working. It was giving her back to him. Michael stood a few feet away, arms folded tightly across his chest, as if holding himself together. He watched father and daughter with an expression Ethan didn't fully understand. Raw admiration, quiet longing, and a tenderness he didn't try to hide anymore. A nurse entered gently. We expected improvement, but this is remarkable. Her vitals look better than they have in weeks. Ethan wiped his face, laughing through tears. She's a miracle. Michael's voice came low. She always was. The nurse made a few notes, dimmed the lights again, and stepped out with a soft smile. When the door closed, the room returned to that fragile hush, the kind born after chaos, when the world finally exhales. Ethan eased back into the chair, brushing Ava's hair from her face. You scared me, he whispered. You scared me so much. Across the room, Michael leaned against the window frame, head bowed. The light from the hallway cast a faint glow around him, outlining a man who looked both relieved and afraid. Ethan cleared his throat. You should come closer. She might recognize your voice. Michael hesitated, then took slow steps toward the bed, stopping at a respectful distance. Hey, little fighter, he murmured. You're doing so well. Ava didn't stir, but her fingers twitched again, her breathing steady and sure. Ethan watched Michael's face, the awe, the ache, before speaking carefully. I don't know how to process what the test said. Not yet. But none of this changes who I am to her, or who she is to me. Michael nodded, swallowing hard. I understand. And none of this means you're the enemy, Ethan added quietly. You didn't know. I didn't know. None of this was your choice any more than it was mine. Michael's eyes glistened. If I could undo all this confusion, I would. I know. Silence stretched, different this time. Not hostile. Not tense. Just human. Be honest. After everything they've been through, could you forgive the people who shattered your understanding of your own life? Type forgive if you could, or never, if the wound would be too deep. Ethan took a slow breath and continued, voice softer now. So, where does this leave us? Michael stepped closer to the foot of the bed. Wherever you want it to. I will never take her from you. Even if biology connects us, you are her father. The one she woke up calling for. Emotion cracked through Ethan's chest. But you're not just some stranger anymore. No, Michael whispered. I'm not. They both looked at Ava, small, brave, precious, sleeping peacefully under the warm hum of machines. Ethan rubbed his face. When she gets better, I'll tell her the truth. Age-appropriate, gentle, but honest. She deserves that. Michael nodded. And I'll be whatever she needs me to be. Nothing more. Nothing less. You set the boundaries. Ethan, I'll follow them. For the first time since the test result, Ethan felt his lungs loosen. Trust wasn't fully formed yet, but the soil was there, the faintest beginning of something that might steady itself in time. A soft beep from the monitor signaled another jump in Ava's progress. Ethan smiled, leaning forward. Look at her climb. She's not done fighting yet. A spark warmed Michael's expression. She's got your spirit. Maybe she has a little of yours too, Ethan answered, not unkindly. The two men shared a quiet, tentative smile, an unspoken acknowledgement that they were tied together now, not by conflict, but by the child who needed both of them in different ways. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll past. Tap like, not for me, but for the soul who carried all this pain and still stayed kind. One click can be your way of saying, I felt this, I'm here too. Hours later, after Michael stepped out to take a call, and nurses dimmed the lights further, Ethan remained beside Ava. He rested his head near her hand, breathing in sync with hers. The storm had passed, outside and inside. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, co-parenting with a billionaire, navigating the truth with Ava, building boundaries that respected love and biology alike. But for the first time in weeks, tomorrow didn't feel like an enemy. Michael returned quietly, holding 2 cups, 1 tea, 1 coffee. He set the coffee beside Ethan, the tea by his own chair. Ethan looked at him, surprised. "You didn't have to." "I know," Michael said softly. "That's why I wanted to." In the hush of the night, with Ava's heartbeat steady and sure, Ethan realized something unexpected. He was no longer alone. Michael wasn't replacing him. He wasn't disrupting their life. He was joining it, carefully, respectfully, gratefully, not as a rival, but as another guardian in the circle around Ava's life. And when Ava opened her eyes fully the next morning, bright, alive, curious, the first thing she saw were the 2 men who loved her more than anything in the world. 2 fathers, 1 heart, her heart. And that was the beginning of a different kind of family, broken in places, healed in others, but stitched together by something stronger than blood. Choice, love, forgiveness, and hope that refused to give up. The end.